My name is Misael Cabrera, and you're listening to Resource Revolution.
My name is Adam Simon. I am a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences at the University of Michigan in the United States, and I am your podcast host for Resource Revolution, brought to you by Hexagon. One of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is trying to understand both the upstream supply of critical minerals and all of the various technologies that critical minerals today are used to manufacture. So it is my extreme pleasure today to welcome our guest, Misael Cabrera, who is currently the director of the School of Mining and Mineral Resources at the University of Arizona. Misael has an academic background in engineering and then a nearly 30-year career working in the private sector, and then as the director of the State of Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So he has a significant amount of experience in both the private sector and in the public sector, talking with people throughout the state of Arizona, which has a rich history in mining. So Misael, welcome.
Thank you, Adam. I'm happy to be here.
So Misael, when I read about your appointment as the director for the School of Mining and Mineral Resources at the University of Arizona, it's a relatively new school. And I'm curious if you can give our listeners a sense of what the school is, what your role is as director, and what you hope to accomplish.
Certainly, Adam. The school tries to bring together an entire university's worth of disciplines to address the challenges of mining and minerals for the future. So if we think about the challenges associated with minerals, they really have to do with the fact that all of the deposits are typically now deeper and harder to mine. It has to do with the fact that there are community pressures associated with new mining projects. What the University of Arizona does is it created the School of Mining and Mineral Resources to serve as a cross-cutting function across all departments that are engaged with and or doing innovative curriculum and innovative research associated with the mining and minerals industries. And so we are the connective tissue across the mining and minerals industry and its challenges, producing both innovative curriculum and innovative research.
How do you feel that the course and other courses in the school address the negative perception of mining among the general public?
What these classes do is they address two things. The first is that society in general is largely disconnected from their reliance on minerals. So most folks walking down the street, and even most students, don't realize how incredibly important minerals are in everyday life. And because people are not connected to the importance of minerals in their everyday life, what occurs then is that they fall prey to what's in the media and in the movies. One of my favorite examples is the movie Avatar. It's a franchise that's one of the top grossing movie franchises of all time. And the villain in this movie is literally a mining company. And so when folks are disconnected to the minerals that they use every day in everyday life, and then they're bombarded by a lot of negative media, then sometimes the perceptions can grow negative. Now, I do want to say that the past of mining in this country, and in some places around the world even today, mining is still not done well. And so in the United States, there's a past that's real about the mining industry before regulatory systems were in place, before we knew the damage that we were incurring on the planet. But that past is true in any industry that you pick. If you take the medical industry and look at its past, you'll find plenty of negative things too. And so what we're trying to do is get folks connected to their minerals so that they don't fall prey to the negative perceptions that are abounding. Now, one interesting thing that we did find is we interviewed students on campus at the University of Arizona. And what was interesting is that although the perceptions were slightly negative, they weren't much more negative than industry in general. And what was also surprising in our survey was that students would consider a career in the mining industry if they thought that there was something that they liked doing in the mining industry itself. So there's that disconnection, there's the media negative perceptions, and then there's not being able to see themselves in the industry. For example, a lot of folks don't know that the industry needs data scientists and it needs environmental scientists.
What you raise is something that I find often when I'm talking with young adults is the tension between mitigating anthropogenic climate change and the need to mine the metals to build the technologies that will allow us to mitigate our impact on the climate. And I'm curious, when you think about that tension, what role do you think elected leaders, politicians at the state and national level, what role do you think they could play, or should they play a larger role in advocating for an increase in the workforce and providing additional funds to universities so that you can recruit and train more students? Do you think politicians are doing what we need them to do?
I'm in my 50s, and during my lifetime, the population of the planet has doubled. It's gone from about 4 billion people to about 8 billion people. And those 8 billion people, they want a hot shower. They want a cold beer. They want a way to get to and from work. They want a television set. They want cell phones. And so that awareness is starting to grow by elected officials. What we found is that environmental protections and commitments to reducing greenhouse gases and other pollutants really occur as countries start to develop a certain amount of wealth. But when countries are emerging from poverty, it's very difficult for them to make those commitments. And so one of the best things that we can do to fuel the green revolution and address climate change is to have abundant economic minerals so that those minerals can be used in the technologies that can in turn save the planet. And I think there's a growing awareness of that by elected officials, but I think they can do more. In terms of the green revolution, what it's going to take, I think that there's fringes and then there's the majority of people. One fringe of the political spectrum believes that there's too many people on the planet and that the planet would be best served by having fewer people. And that if we just want that hard enough, that we can save the planet. If we try to guilt people into different behaviors or have government regulation that is so robust and far-reaching that it limits the greenhouse gas emissions, then possibly we can save the planet. What I would say is that there's no evidence that that's possible. None. The environmental movement has been around for 50 or 60 years, and we have tried that and it has failed. In fact, the Toyota Prius, which is a great car, well designed, well put together, the Toyota Prius was a perfect example of the limited impact that you will have when you don't have things that are economic and attractive. So what I would say about that fringe is that they don't understand the human end user, and therefore they're counting on magic to save the planet. Then there's another fringe all the way on the other side of the political spectrum, and they deny that climate change is happening. And what I would tell those folks is the data is clear. The planet is getting hotter. And irrespective of this debate over whether or not it's naturally caused or human caused or anything in between, we know that carbon dioxide emissions serve as an insulating heat retention gas in our atmosphere. We know this. And therefore, we need to do something because the dolphins and the bears are not going to save the planet. We have to do that. And then there's the people in the middle. And I believe that with the people in the middle, they just don't know. They aren't aware. They don't have a particular political bent. They don't have a particular dogma. But they're disconnected. They believe that their electricity comes from a socket in the wall. If we connect them to the fact that minerals are in the DNA of civilization, that there is no saving the planet without minerals. If we educate them to the fact that an electric vehicle has 4 to 6 times as much copper as an internal combustion engine, if we help them understand that the green revolution plus the population increases that are almost certain through 2058 are going to create a demand for copper that may be greater than the demand that we've ever had across human history. If we educate them to those things, I think we can make a difference. And in so doing, I think that we can recover or rebuild the social license to operate that we need.
Promising young adults who have bright futures ahead of them. We as a society can make the changes that we need to make in order to ensure equitable access to energy globally. How does that give you optimism that we can address this problem?
I think that in the United States, we have a diverse population. We import talent from all over the world. And that talent works very, very hard to create a better future. And that makes me very optimistic, specifically in terms of mining, because sooner or later, we're going to realize that we're not going to guilt people into saving the planet, that it's technology that's going to get us there. And as soon as you say technology, then you're talking about minerals. And as soon as you say minerals, that has to include mining. We should invest in recycling and circular economies, and we should push those two items as much as we can. But the data is pretty clear. We're going to need to mine a lot more in order to fuel the technology that's then in turn going to create the decarbonization that we need. And I'm not optimistic because innovation never stops. It never stops at our universities that we work for. And people are working on amazing things. One of our researchers is actually working on a synthetic sugar compound that preferentially absorbs certain rare earth elements. And it's a sugar compound, completely non-toxic. And she's formulated a small company that's testing this technology. This is Dr. Raina Mir that I'm talking about. And so innovations like that, and in the young people, the undergraduate research that's sometimes occurring, the things we see in design days, they're all very encouraging. And I'm not the kind of person to believe that we, as a human species, that we're akin to yeast in a petri dish, that once we consume all the glucose, then we die. I think we're better than that. I think that as a species, we have the ability to create new visions and then implement new visions. And so I'm always heartened. And I believe that in case of mining and minerals, we can connect people to the reality that it's in the DNA of civilizations and will always be in the DNA of our species. And I think that once we connect people to that, we'll get more projects, we'll get the minerals that we need, and then we'll start decarbonizing in a way that saves the planet. In the long term, I believe that circularity can work in the long term. But I don't think that that's going to get us through the next 50 years, and maybe not even the next 100 years.
That's a great way to end. Misael Cabrera, I really want to thank you for joining me today as the guest on Resource Revolution, a podcast that is brought to you by Hexagon. And I'd like to encourage all of our listeners to make sure you communicate the podcast to your friends and colleagues if you found this beneficial and enjoyable. You can listen to Resource Revolution on any of the services that you get your podcast through. So until our next episode, thank you for listening.